it eliminates the expectation of getting something in return.
Yeah.
Because you're doing it freely of your own, you're giving of yourself in service and without any thought of receiving anything back.
Plus that distracts you from your work. If your half your focus is on what am I going to get out of it.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right. Which is why I've never in 40 odd years charged anything for lessons. And I see no reason to start now. And as a consequence of that, the service is unaffected and is as well presented as I can. And I know that with the elimination of expecting to get something in return eliminated, there's no holding back on anything. And like I say, the universe, I serve the universe, the creation, and whatever needs I have will be met. And I trust that, and I've not been disappointed in that. I've been a little bit concerned on occasion, but otherwise I've found that if you maintain that approach, you know, it's like your healings or whatever, you're entitled to, you've been given the ability to do that, and you do that freely without thought of getting anything back for it. And the same goes with esoterics. Now there are some subjects that, while there is no expectation of reward or whatever, but in certain aspects of esoterics, I'm hell on wheels as a teacher, because I've made people say, I'd say, you stay over there, you don't belong here yet. When you know what I know, then you can join me over here. So, and that was like in explaining how a circle works, you know, and some of the circles involve Kabbalistic practice and whatnot, and I would be in there and I'd say, I'm going to explain to you this, but you don't belong here yet because you don't know. When you know, then you can stand there.
Oh, you mean as far as teaching?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been known to be rather strict about that. Metaphysics, fortunately, is not a strict-driven philosophy, and it allows for a lot of flexibility. So if there are no other questions, and I apologize for rambling, I do that. It's a good thing my last name isn't Rose. Okay, today we'll be doing lessons 6 and 7, and the first one on lesson 6 is self-condemnation. In lesson 5, we stress the importance of coming into a realization of our own worth and giving recognition to the divine center within, around which your life is to revolve and from which it will evolve and grow. In order to bring a clear understanding of this truth, we are treating in this lesson on the error of self-condemnation. Many people practice the bad habit of condemning themselves. They spend much time in regretting some act of the past. They worry over it almost constantly. It is possibly a mistake of the past in which some other individual was made to suffer. Or it may have been some miscalculation in business affairs which caused them to lose a large sum of money, and they will not permit themselves to forget the incident. Then again, many people are constantly doing things which they consider wrong and for which they condemn themselves and feel ashamed. We are going to approach these 3 phases one at a time. First, you may have committed some act in the past that was contrary to your higher self, or you may have done something that reacted destructively toward someone else, and ever since that time you have been feeling ashamed. You have a convulsion in your feelings whenever you think of the incident. Nearly everyone has experiences of this kind. In our warped state of mind, we sometimes feel that we stand singularly alone in these very distressing experiences of life. If we but knew it, these experiences are common to all. In many cases, the event itself is almost no consequence, but the disastrous results to the actor themselves may be tremendous. What can be done about it? The answer contains just 2 words: forget it. you don't dwell on it, just let it go.
That makes it easy.
And resolve not to do it again. But you don't carry it around as baggage. This injunction is not so easily carried out, but it can be done. Whenever the incident flashes into mind, begin to think about something else. If there is no other way, make your statements of truth as given in these lessons. I am peaceful. I have the power to think. I am in quiet meditation. I am contacting my good now. I am powerful. As you repeat these statements to yourself, try to realize the peace profound that underlies all conditions and situations, regardless of how disturbing they may appear to be. Reflect upon the creative power of thought and know that you are a co-worker with God in the creation of your ideas. Now, metaphysically, for myself, I learned a long time ago a phraseology which is great for maintaining balance. And it goes along the line of, he who is without joy and without sorrow is truly balanced. You eliminate those that eliminates the up and downs. And in a moment of crisis, if you repeat that, it helps center you again. It helps get your focus back. It's like in the movies, Dune. Remember the mentats, the human computers? They drink that. You saw it. You've seen it, right?
Yeah, it's been a while.
They drink a little narcotic drink. He drinks it down, and he says, "It is by will alone." Let me see. Now I can't recall it.
It is by will alone that I set my mind in motion.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, it is by will alone I set my mind in motion. It is by the juice of saffron. Thoughts acquire speed. Speed acquires thought. And
thought requires action.
no. Let's see. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. It is by the juice of saffron that thoughts acquire speed. And now I can't.
There's
remember.
something about it touching the lips too.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah,
about
but what it
touching
does
the
is
lips.
it's a mantra that they repeat that focuses their all their energy into mental thought, into a single point. And this is like a mantra too that helps you get centered, and like the one in metaphysics. He who is without joy and sorrow is truly balanced. It takes a while to get that down, but if you start feeling stressed over something, if you visualize that in yourself and you say that to yourself, that can help get you centered again, no matter what's going on. I have always found it worked for me.
That he who is without joy and sorrow. That's the one.
Yeah, he who is without joy and sorrow is truly balanced.
Words of healing, I heard the word. Yeah, because you can choose.
Almost had it. Almost had it.
So close.
Oh yeah, there now. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. It is by the juice of saffron that thoughts acquire speed, lips acquire stain, stain becomes warning. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. Because that was the mentat's lips were stained by the narcotic drink.
Is that the spice that either I put too?
No, that was separate.
Okay.
The saffron was a narcotic. Anyway, moving on. If you do those affirmations, I am peaceful, I have the power to think, I am in quiet meditation, I am contacting my good now, I am powerful, you realize the peace that underlies all of that. And it's all a mantra, and you focus on it, and it helps you get centered again. If you think earnestly along the lines suggested for a little while, you will lose interest in the bugaboos of the past. In addition to having turned the tide of your thinking from destructive channels, for the time being, you will have gained strength and power from sending out your thought vibrations into the higher planes. This is one great value in having statements of truth memorized for use when the occasion demands. Any one of the statements mentioned might form the basis for many hours of thinking. If you establish the habit of repeating them to yourself, when thoughts you wish to be rid of come into your mind, you will soon find that unpleasant, negative thoughts will trouble you less frequently. And it is so very true. Second, sometime in the past you may have made an unsuccessful business deal, or you may have held a good position and lost it, or you failed to take advantage of an opportunity which seemingly would have changed the entire course of your life. You can see the situation clearly now and know what you should have done, yet it is too late. Still you continue to dwell on it, telling it to your friends and acquaintances, perhaps pointing with envy to someone who was in a like position but who took the opposite road from the one you chose and now has wealth as the result of his action. What are the consequences to yourself of this line of thought and conduct? In the first place, these negative thoughts of regret, self-pity, and self-blame tend to keep you bound to the state of poverty or undesirable conditions involved in the experience about which you are thinking. Therefore, you must break away from the consciousness of that experience in order to free yourself from the results of it. Now, in the state of poverty can be poverty of the mind. That's what we're talking about here. When you think of what a mistake you have made in the past, you are suggesting to yourself that you are a failure and you are undermining much of your pride and self-respect. When such thoughts of failure come up and you feel tempted to bewail your losses in the past, try laughing about them. Yes, laugh even if you do not feel like it, and say to yourself, well, that was not so bad after all. Many people have done worse and everything is all right now. This helps to restore good feelings regarding yourself and enables you to get hold of the present and make good with the opportunities before you now. It's like when people say, well, how are you doing? Well, I'm still upright. Makes it easier to get around. Or if somebody, whenever I go shopping at Joe's or whatever, and I run across a cashier who's having a bad day, you can tell, you can feel their energy. I say, what somebody used to tell me? Smile, things could get worse. I smiled, sure as hell, it got worse.
Yeah, that probably disarms.
It does. And it makes you, because if you're really sensitive, you're picking up on their energy, and that's a good way to dispel it.
Yeah.
And if you can get them to laugh or even smile, you could remake their day. And it's like I tell people, if acting like a fool makes you feel good about yourself, I don't mind being a fool. It's part of the job. It's in the job description. Sometimes you got to be a fool.
Can I share something real quick?
Sure.
Last week we talked about, let's see if I can get, it just went, doop. I felt on the spot and then my memory just went. Okay, we talked about constructive thinking.
Right.
And I was able to use that this week through some more really rough patches of wanting to ruminate on failure and bad things. And I just kept saying, think constructive. Think constructive. Constructive thinking, and it would help put my thoughts to the, and amazingly enough, I'm in a much better place today than I would be had I not done that.
You're right. And that's why for me, over some 4 decades, I've always kind of preferred the approach of he who is without joy and sorrow is truly balanced. Because that gets you, that eliminates the emotions, which can bounce you around like a tennis ball on an open court, and it gets you focused and centered. And once you can get your center back, then you can function.
Well, I think my biggest problem is, so when we meditate, we're supposed to let our conscious thoughts sort of sit in the back and open ourselves up for answers. What I try to do is I try to manhandle, I try to figure it out myself, and I run around in circles. And I get more and more upset because I'm like, if I don't figure this out, it's going to happen again. It's going to keep happening.
See, because, you know, one of the things, you notice that in her dissertation there, she's using the word try an awful lot of times.
That T word.
Yeah, the T word. You may work
I
at
was doing
something.
so good the first half of that, I consciously didn't say it.
You know, you work at making corrections. You know, like I say, try and every once in a while I'll slip on it. You know, but I recant that mentally because, like I say, when you are saying, well, I'll try this, you're saying, you know, I'm going to give it a shot, but you know,
It's not gonna work.
it's just not going to work,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to accept that it's not going to work. But
Try says failure is an option. Try says, yeah.
It gives you the option of failing. Okay, and once you never anticipate failing. It's like Yoda was telling Luke when he was training him, he said, "No try, do, don't do." And it applies. I mean, it's, you know, it may be a science fiction epic, but some of the philosophy in it has is rooted in some very wise, you know, sayings. So that's why never avoid using try as much as possible, because what you're subconsciously saying is, I'm gonna try this, but I'm willing to accept that I probably will fail. And one should never anticipate failure. Let failure happen of its own accord. But then that'll be a consequence of something that is probably beyond your control.
I agree with telling myself I'm going to try, because I agree with that. But when I'm with someone and I'm trying to help them with something, and they don't want to try what I used to go try it.
Yeah.
They don't want to do, and I'm telling them that it might work, right? Okay. So I'll say, well, you just give it a try.
Yeah.
Is that wrong?
No, it's not wrong. It's,
I mean,
you know,
no, really, that.
because, you know, it's what we're talking is a philosophic concept here. And somebody who needs help is not going to be in the frame of mind to discuss philosophy. So you have to deal with them where they're at now. So,
That's what I tell them. I said, well, you're not doing it right now.
right.
So if you do it a different way.
Yeah, you know, say, you know, you can, you know, what are you thinking about trying? You know, you're going to try it. Maybe you might consider doing this as opposed to trying this.
You know what Dr. Phil says, if you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you're getting.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
What's the saying about a person who does the same thing over and over again, expecting to get different results?
Insanity.
Insanity, yes.
I think that one's even in the dictionary.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure.
And I think if you look up insanity in the dictionary, you see picture Dr. Phil there.
The example there.
Okay, let's, moving on. I believe we're at, you should be thinking and planning for the present and future. You have not one moment to waste in thinking of the past. The present is all you can take care of. Life is a series of lessons, and if we can accept such experience as a lesson, trying to understand it and feeling grateful for it, we will rob every adverse condition of its power to harm us.
Wait. Can you read that again?
Sure. You should be thinking and planning for the present and future. All right, why? The past you can't plan for. It's already happened. There's nothing you can do about that. You can only deal with what you're facing now and what potentially may face you tomorrow.
That's why you have to figure out what happened so that you don't do it again.
Well, that's where you do introspection. You know, because as it says, you know, you don't have time to waste thinking about what was or what happened in the past and dwelling on it. And some of us do that. I mean, we make those invisible anchors on ourselves that hold us back.
I think I've done that most of my life.
Well,
Should have done it.
yeah.
Shoulda,
Well,
woulda, coulda.
Yes.
we're all capable of that. I mean, I've had definitely my moments of it. So, in carrying on with that, life is a series of lessons, and the anticipation is that we learn from our lessons so that we don't repeat what we did in the past that was not beneficial to us.
I like being grateful for
Yeah.
it. I like that part of it.
Okay, again, many people are constantly doing things which they consider wrong and for which they continue to condemn themselves and feel ashamed. You don't like what you do, don't do it.
Yeah,
Makes
it's
sense.
pretty simple, huh?
Yeah. In the first place, we must come to an understanding of the meaning of the word wrong. We have inherited from the past certain conceptions regarding good and evil, and there are many things that have been labeled wrong and have "thou shalt not" tacked on them. I always thought there should be 5 thou shalt nots and 5 thou shalts. I think it's a nice balanced
It's
approach.
a balance.
Without stopping to give these matters any thought ourselves, we many times accept the established belief regarding them, and without asking why or in what way they violate the law of our being, we condemn ourselves when we consider public opinion along this line. And if you're doing what you should be doing, then you should never have any recriminations about it. Me, like with myself, I endeavor to be faithful to the work, and any shortcomings are a problem of my misinterpretation of the guidance of the universe. And I've been knocked on my butt enough times to a word from the wise. The wise, I understand. Someone has defined right as being anything that reacts constructively to oneself and to everyone concerned, and wrong as being anything that reacts destructively to oneself and everyone concerned. This, perhaps, is about as good a definition as we could frame, but it is not altogether in accord with past thought. The human race is not yet free. It is still bound by old superstitions, traditions, and conventions. Our attitude should be to maintain our own freedom of spirit, to accord to the self within the sole right to be the judge of what is right and wrong for us. However, in refusing to be hedged in by all the narrow walls of conventionality, we must be careful not to offend others who have not the same understanding of the truth as we. We must conform to some extent to the prevalent thought along many lines. But if you decide that a certain course of action will result in only good to yourself and others affected by it, and feel strong enough to meet any criticism resulting from such a course, go ahead, even though you may know that some will condemn you. It's like we are entitled to the work, and we get nothing from it, and we do the work as best as we can, and as we see that it should be done. And if others don't understand, it's not our problem. And we can't let them make it be our problem. We can't let their opinions influence us to make us feel that we're doing something wrong.
We should do what we think is right.
Right, exactly. Because, it's like, not everyone is working on the same level that you are. And their concept of right and wrong may be somewhat weird or twisted. But it's relative to the world that they know and their level of understanding of consciousness. So it's like, when you meet someone who's overbearing like that, and being pushy, I found what works good is you look them in the eye and you just say, where you are, I once was. Where I am now, you may one day hope to be.
Yeah, piss them off real good.
Just thinking, yeah.
And then just smile and turn away and walk away.
If you're still standing.
Yeah. Well, usually I have found that the shock value, their jaw is down around their ankle. Yeah.
And there's gotta be a part of them that recognizes the truth in it.
Yeah, unless they're just complete dunderheads.
Yeah.
But that's about as disarming a statement as you can make. Because at some point in a past life, who knows, we were standing in the same shoes they're in. So we've grown, they have yet to grow. And that's a little bit more direct and abrasive than, where you are, I once was. Where I am now, you may one day hope to be.
And then you exit
And you
stage
just
right.
smile.
Yeah, that's right. Run as fast as you can.
Yeah, just smile and walk away.
I especially like that because that means you're not holding on to their,
Right, whatever they're putting out, yeah.
you're just letting them have their own trip and you're their own,
Yeah. See, and with some people, there's nothing you can do that's going to touch them anyway. And rather than sit there and waste energy on it, just bow out gracefully, wish them well, and walk away. Okay, moving on. And I meant to say also that whenever we've discussed this before, in the contemplation of doing something for someone, not only do you become responsible for how it affects them, but you'll also become responsible for the effect it has on others that you don't even know about. It's like wishing someone to experience something that they have cast a negative view on for somebody else doing something. And it's like saying, and somebody saying, well, can I do something to help them? And you say, well, no, you have to be careful here. Philosophically, what you do to help them and what they do as a consequence of you helping them, if it affects somebody else negatively, then you can't do it. You shouldn't do it.
Oh, you mean like if they're helping one person, but
Well-
the effects of that help
Well, like,
Well,
let's get it
not be
down.
good for a different.
Well, let's get it down on earthly terms. Say you've got a convicted murderer, and you're sending energy, and you think that they really are innocent and whatnot, and you put energy into it, and people are putting energy into it, and through circumstances the person is released. All right, and then within 24 hours he kills somebody else. All right. Philosophically, and I'm a hardliner in this, especially for myself, if the energy that you invested into them being released results in somebody else being killed as a consequence, then you are responsible for that death. Yeah. Yeah. So the more gifted you become, and I use the term gifted for a general term, the more conscious you have to be of the effect of what you do. Because it's just not now, it can also go into the future.
So, abortion would cause a great deal of karma in not only the life that it happened in, but in future lifetimes.
That's a very nebulous
I
subject.
think sometimes, this is how I feel, it's like a soul when it's, if I was gonna have an abortion, that soul came in for that purpose.
Or change their mind.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
It's a very-
lifetime.
It's a very complicated subject. I mean, it's not something that's easily addressed because, maybe, say a fetus that's in distress, all right, and birth is allowed, and the birth results in an autistic child, or something along that line, or a deformity which, you know, is potentially life-threatening. It's you know, something that it's hard to address philosophically. That was this intended? Was this a lesson that this life was supposed to experience, or is it terminated prior to birth to spare it from having to experience that?
Maybe even as a lesson to the people that were involved.
Yeah,
in
I mean,
that.
it's not a simple answer, not a simple question. Yeah, there's a lot involved there. See,
Probably
because
similar to suicide, it all depends on so many variables.
right,
Yeah.
you know, and whether there should be interference in what may be a necessary life cycle. I mean, it can get really complicated quick.
Yeah.
The best, you know, the only thing I would say is, you know, you use it, you know, an individual should use their best conscience about it, and should not be held to recrimination because of their choices, because it is ultimately their choice. And I don't hold with anybody saying that you have to do this or you have to do that or whatever. You know, what other people's personal philosophies are about it, that's fine with them. You know, yeah, it's their choice, and that's what it is, choice.
Well, they have to take the consequences for it. I mean, either,
Yeah.
whatever way, you know, it turns out, you know, it's the one who's pushing an agenda one way or the other doesn't ultimately have to face that consequence, but that
Well, yeah, the
person's
one who's pushing the
choice
agenda
is-
is generally not the one who's pregnant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right.
right. And
Right.
they both have repercussions from it,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
That's a tough one.
And I think that should be, you know, up to the individual and how they feel philosophically about it, you know. And if a doctor says, you know, I have some bad news for you, and this is what our tests show, and you know, is it then the decision is up to the individual? Should I bring this life in? Yeah.
And my daughter, I had 200 x-rays, I didn't know I was pregnant. Back then, I didn't have a shield. And we were gonna do that blood test for this weekend, and see. And even if her hair's out of place, all nails out of place, she was born with the most perfect, I would show that. So on my mind, I didn't want to be the best. You know,
Yeah.
me. So, everybody has a choice.
Yeah, it's like I have a estranged brother that we only talk every 25 years, and we only have a week window that we will communicate with each other. But he has 3 daughters, and one daughter, as I'm giving to understand, gave birth to a child that required extensive medical treatment.
Twins.
Yeah, twins, yeah. And they, she wasn't married, but the last time he did an accounting, the medical expenses were in excess of $2 million. Yeah. Because there were just a lot of problems there, a lot of problems. So, like I said, it's a personal thing. Yeah, and as long as you're comfortable, as long as the person is comfortable with their decision, you know, who gives a damn what anybody else thinks? You know, if you're comfortable with it, that's the end of it. That's the end of the story. You know, an individual should do what they're comfortable with. Yeah, and accept it, and don't make it a burden on your soul that you're going to carry around with you because of what the choices that you made.
Because that just adds more negativity.
Right. So you make a choice, and it's no matter what, across the board, you make a choice, and you make the best decision you can based on the best information that you have, and be comfortable with the decision that you make. and vow that you will never be uncomfortable with it.
Because you don't know what may be other decision. It could be twice as bad as
Yeah.
on
Right,
this one.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah,
And you beat yourself up for nothing.
right. So that, that goes back to living in the past, 5 years down the road, you start looking back at this, well, maybe, then you start feeling bad about it, you start beating up on yourself about it. You just, you make your decision, content yourself to live with that peacefully, and just move on. And Nikki is in deep thought. Okay, moving on. The thing of primary importance here is that you keep on good terms with yourself. That's what we're talking about. Let yourself be the judge of whether a certain line of conduct should be pursued.
Oh, where are we? Oh, 18.
18.
Okay.
Yeah. Let yourself be the judge of whether a certain line of conduct should be pursued, and when you decide upon your course of action, throw your whole self into it. Do not do a thing and then condemn yourself. If you cannot give it your self-approval, by all means let it alone. To do otherwise is to be out of harmony with yourself, to create a disturbed condition that will destroy the sense of peace, power, and poise that you are trying to build up in your feelings. Do not violate your consciousness. Respect your feelings in deciding any course of action, and you will find, as you trust your feelings, that they will more and more become a safe guide to follow. That's your inner self.
And don't get in other people just because
Right.
they have that ideas.
Right. Because their path is their path. A wise man said, "Happy is he who condemns not himself in the thing that he allows." In other words, the person who doesn't condemn themselves for their own choices is happier than those who blame themselves for everything. You make your choices and be comfortable with the choices that you make. And always bear in mind that when you made that choice, it was the best choice based on what you felt and knew at the time. Remember, the highest tribunal of authority is the kingdom within, your own inner self. And the only place you can be aware of that kingdom and authority within is in the realm of consciousness or feeling. When you have lived up to the highest ideal of your conception, your feeling about a thing is to be accepted as the highest authority as to whether that thing is right. Take the statement, "I am my own authority." Think it over thoughtfully, establish yourself in that position, and then execute it faithfully. From such practice will grow strength, power, and initiative. It will in time make you a leader of others instead of a follower. People will sense that in you, and they will just naturally gravitate toward you. So go into the silence, and after relaxing both body and mind, go over the statements of the last lesson. I am peaceful. I have the power to think. I am in quiet meditation. I am contacting my good now. I am powerful. Followed with, I am my own authority. And do this as you working on this lesson until we get into the part of the next lesson where you will add on to this. So just remember, use the phrasing that we're using. We're going to focus on for this lesson is I am peaceful. I have the power to think. I am in quiet meditation. I am contacting my good now. I am powerful. I am my own authority. And that keeps others from having authority over you. You are your own being. Any questions? If there are no questions, we'll take a little break before we get moving along. We have a plethora